On this edition of the Ag Issues program, as always during the month of May, we celebrate Beef Month in the state of Kansas. And yes, I've looked at the calendar and it is in the latter part of May, but we're joined now by Scott Stebner, Director of Communications with the Kansas Beef Council. Scott, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well, Greg. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. And yes, we do in Kansas celebrate the month of May as Beef Month in the state of Kansas, but it's an understatement to say, Scott, that this one's a little different, just due in part because of how many things are different because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Exactly. But you know what? I view that may officially be Beef Month, but for all of us, every month is Beef Month.
Yeah, most definitely. And Scott, a couple of things about that I think still are yet to be played out. But one of the things that everyone has taken a look at is, of course, with restaurants, most of them being closed down or relegated just to curbside service. That's really changed some complexities with regards to buying meat, or in this case, cooking themselves. We see a lot more cooking at home, and we've seen some fundamental changes on what people go to the grocery store for.
Exactly. COVID definitely has disrupted a lot in everyone's lives. But one of the things that I think is a positive that can be taken out of this is that consumers are really loving to cook at home, or at least experimenting to cook. And they're reaching for beef quite often. 80% of consumers are cooking meals at home on a regular, but also 73% plus are choosing beef at least once a week, which is definitely a great statistic. And I think one of the great opportunities in this whole mess that we're in is that we have a chance to get pro beef, factual, science based information in front of consumers. And this beef month, we've definitely been focusing on that, knowing that once again, consumers are spending a significant amount of time cooking at home. And so we've been doing things like giving great recipes out there, whether it's being through staff produced 60-second or less recipe videos. Our wonderful, talented dietitian and nutritionist Abby Hadari has been filming a bunch of videos and writing content on how to help consumers choose beef and make it part of a healthy and balanced lifestyle. And then we're also helping consumers really trust the process behind beef through virtual ranch tours. We have completed 5 virtual ranch tours that our producers have helped us do to really film a day in the life of where their beef comes from. So I think there is tremendous opportunity to not only get them great information, help them fall in love with beef, not just today, but for years down the road, but also to debunk and dispel some of the myths that they may have seen elsewhere. And not just Beef Month, but this is part of our strategy every single month, every month of the year.
I watched one of those Day at the Ranch videos. It was Brandy Buzzard, Four Bros, and of course her husband Wyatt Hyatt Four Bros. Excuse me. That's a point of view that not a lot of people get. If you're a rancher, yeah, that's your everyday point of view. But for the consumer, I thought that made it interesting. And when I talk in point of view, we're talking literal point of view out there with both of them.
Yeah, Brandy and Hyatt did a great job. We've also have several other ranchers from all facets, whether it be seed stock, cow calf, feed yards, stocker, you name it. We tried to get as many aspects of the industry as possible. But just for some insight to it, with COVID going on, we were really under self-quarantine. So we were able to get some GoPros out to ranchers, and our wonderful ranching community volunteered. And really, they were their own content creators for the day or the week. And they wore GoPros on their head, on their chest, or through a tripod, and really gave a first-hand glimpse into what goes on in the beef world and gave some great commentary. They mailed the GoPros back to us. We edited up and sent them out, and it's been great. And I think it really does fall in line with a lot of the research. Kansas Beef Council, we will always be driven by research. I have my master's in agricultural communication, so research and how it affects strategy is very important to me. And sometimes more overly produced content can seem less trustworthy. And so that was a big goal of this, is to have trustworthy, more firsthand content that isn't as polished getting in front of the consumers. And we've really enjoyed it. Our producers are doing a great job. Naturally, they do an amazing job producing beef. But the chance to be able to go along and film it and get that in front of consumers is definitely an advantage.
Scott Stebner, Director of Communications with the Kansas Beef Council, is joining us here on the Ag Issues program on 580 WIBW. Scott, let me ask you this, and you almost can put this as during the pandemic and pre-pandemic, which is extremely weird to say, but it seems like that's how things are. With the consumer, there was a lot of focus on asking those questions or getting that information out to the consumer pre-pandemic. Did the consumer really, I guess, in one aspect, step up even more during the pandemic, knowing the situation and trying to learn more if they're going to stay at home, if they're going to cook? Well, they had to stay at home, but they're going to cook more and they're going to be able to do that. It just seems like it may have trended more towards that way.
Well, what we have known over the last decade or more, and this fell in line with some of my research as well, was that consumers are increasingly wanting to know more about their food. And that has been a strategic focus of ours at the Beef Council for at least the last 4 years, of getting content that teaches them, went from pasture to plate, that they can trust and should trust their food. Now, during COVID, I'm not sure on the specific data, but one very encouraging thing that has come out of this is consumers have a greater appreciation for that hard work, that day in, day out work that never ends and has never ended from our producers. And we routinely measure on a state and national level trust metrics. And the trust that consumers have in beef right now is very good.
Joining us here on the Ag Issues program is Scott Stebner, Director of Communications with the Kansas Beef Council. Of course, we've been talking about some of the things the consumer has been looking at or maybe more aware of during the pandemic itself. But Scott, as far as the Kansas Beef Council is concerned, they have been very aware of things. They have had some things that they had been working on, now kind of accelerated even more during the pandemic, and that is the rollout coming up very soon of a brand new portal from the Kansas Beef Council.
Yeah, exactly. And once again, I want to reiterate that we are definitely guided by research and data and statistics. And we have several monitoring platforms that we use for a myriad of different topics. And one of the things that we do look at are consumer searches online of different relevant trends and keywords. And one of those that has trended upwards, especially recently, but over a period of years, has been more community sourced beef or online sales of beef. And these are consumers in Kansas and Kansas City searching for these terms. So once again, guided by the data, we are going to be launching a Kansas beef producer hub, essentially, that's going to be connecting consumers who choose to purchase and have the means to purchase beef in either bulk, quarter, half, side, full, that type of thing, with the producers who are choosing to market beef in that way. With this increase searches that consumers are looking at, what we also see is a tremendous opportunity to educate consumers at the same time. We all know Kansas is a leading beef producer in the state, in the country, and so chances are, if a consumer's purchased a steak in Kansas, it has a hoof print in Kansas as well. And so we think it is a great chance to teach them how to cook the steak, where it comes from, teach them about the nutritional benefits, and also dispel some myths as well. And so going back to this beef portal, we are looking for Kansas beef producers who do sell in this way to upload their contact information, and I think you have it below, so thank you very much for doing that, to the beef website. It is completely free. There is no obligation. We simply want to connect consumers with you. So once you can go down to kansasbeef.org and scroll to the bottom of the website where it says reporting beef checkoff dollars and do the free submission. Now, in the end of June, we plan to roll this out to consumers through strategic and highly targeted Google advertisements to really get this information in front of them. And not just listings where they can look at producers by county, but also give them good answers to their questions, give them some guides, and also dispel some myths along the way.
You and I were talking earlier, and the portal itself, this really wasn't an idea that you had because of the pandemic. This is something that has been a work in process.
We have been carefully studying the data and made a decision based upon that data to move forward with this. We sought input from beef producers as well, and we're excited to roll out something that we really hope is another step in connecting consumers with producers. Because anytime you can get a conversation between consumers and producers, I think it's a win.
What are some of the, I mean, you talked about some of the key terms or key things that people were putting into the Google search. What are some of the analytics saying of some of the other things that maybe they were looking at, consumers were looking at with regards to beef?
We have to take that on a month by month basis. So right now, for example, what you're seeing are more grilling and outside recipes. During about 2 months ago, you saw a really big rise in people searching for comfort food. So, for example, research and data once again drives decision making. And so we saw these upticks. And for example, our staff wrote some blogs, especially one about comfort food. And we've sent over 10,000 consumers to that blog in about 30 days. Based on that research, we were able to get ahead of that trend and get information out to consumers because we knew that while they were in quarantine, they were needing some comfort food. And let's be honest, the best comfort food out there is beef. And we also wanted to get them some recipes on how to do that within their budget and their lifestyle.
Budget is another thing because of the fact you talked about maybe that there are people out there who are interested in purchasing beef through this way, but maybe don't have that cash on hand uh, to be able to get a bundle or a half or a quarter or whatever the case is.
You know, every consumer is going to be in a different spot in their journey for purchasing and securing food for the household. What we view our role as a beef council is getting, once again, that research, education, and promotion, which the Act and Order mandates us that we do, and get that out there. And what we're trying to do specifically is answer those questions that consumers are having, but not only help them get those answers, but also succeed and fall in love with beef all over again and keep doing our absolute best to position beef as America's favorite go-to protein.
Once again, if you'd like more information, if a beef producer is out there and they want to add their offering, you can go to kansasbeef.org/Kansas beef sales listing. And by the way, when we post that on we'll post that on our website when we post this podcast of this interview as well. Scott Stebner, Director of Communications with the Kansas Beef Council, is joining us here on the Ag Issues program on 580 WIBW. Scott, we said pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, we're going to have an eventual post-pandemic in all this, and I'm sure it's going to be interesting and fascinating to look at. Is this going to change buying habits, or in this case, habits of consumers if they're going to eat more at home or still try to go to restaurants and maybe go back to whatever their routine was before the pandemic set in?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not into forecasting. And if I had a crystal ball, I would have stocked up on toilet paper long before the pandemic happened. So, but what I can tell you is we want to be there for the consumer in every single avenue that they're reaching out for information. So whether that's through relevant Google search terms, whether it's through our influencer work where we team up with national level influencers to reach millions of people with pro beef nutritional information, whether it's digital advertising and advertising on streaming audio like Spotify, or whether it's through our meat alternative debunking or focusing on our one simple ingredient campaign that reached millions of people. We want to make sure that wherever they go and wherever they're choosing to get their information, that pro beef, fact-based and scientific evidence shows that beef can be part of a healthy lifestyle, that it is a wonderful choice for their family, and it is a great thing to order when you're out at a restaurant, and do our best to position beef as the go-to protein.
In so many aspects, the rancher has been so important throughout all this for the product that they produce. It seems like now it's magnified even more because of the fact that they can provide that information through the use of the day at the ranch. They can really show that, or even just be able to, in some form or fashion, communicate with that producer, not only through their message via video, but maybe through social media channels too.
And that's one thing I think that more and more people are understanding, that our producers are superheroes, and so I think that's a good thing. And I think they are truly appreciative of all of that hard work, day in, day out, without a break, that they do to put America's favorite protein in the store and at the restaurant, and ultimately on a consumer's plates. So I think any opportunity you can, whether it's through a lot of our Kansas beef producers that have platforms via blogs, view our virtual ranch tours that we've been pushing out to numerous people across the state in Kansas City, or any other avenue. I think it's just good anytime a consumer can sit down with a producer and ask questions, because the research shows that, you know what, the producers have answers, consumers trust producers, so it's going to be a win.
And I think too, you think back to Memorial Day this past weekend, the unofficial start of the grilling season. You look at that, and it goes back to having that family meal. Not only if it's grilling steaks, but if the listeners out there, I bet if I say raise your hand if you can remember a family meal over a roast or something like that. I would think most everyone would have that type of memory too.
Oh, exactly. I mean, beef is at the center, and it really is. I think the protein that brings families together the best, and so one of those reasons why we love targeted digital advertisements that are once again based on data, so they're timely but also incredibly efficient. So whether it's that roast in holiday season that's going to bring them together, maybe that slow cooker recipe where they're busy being homeschooling their children and just want a great meal with little effort, or something that's just going to knock their socks off on the grill. We're getting that content in front of them, because you're right. Food is great at memories. It is great at community, and it is great at bringing people together no matter what the situation is. And beef is just amazing at that. So I think it is a tremendous opportunity to really get information in a very targeted, data-driven, efficient way.
Scott, as we end the program, if there's a producer out there who wants to be involved in this portal, wants to add their information, add their offerings to the listings, what's the best way they can do that?
Well, once again, they can go to the ticker that you see, or go to our website, kansasbeef.org, and scroll to the bottom where you'll see reporting checkoff dollars. And then you will see a thumbnail where it talks about the beef producer listing. I want to reiterate once again, this is no charge. It is a free thing to do with no obligation. We would just like, if you're going to be selling beef in this way, even if you're sold out right now and plan to keep doing it in the future, this isn't a short-term thing we're doing. We plan on doing this for the foreseeable future, and we would like to connect consumers who are choosing to purchase beef in this way with producers who are selling it that way. So you can do that. And if you have any questions at all, you can go to our website as well, scroll to the bottom, and fill out a contact form. It'll get you in connection with any one of us on staff. We would love to answer any of your questions.
Scott, I very much appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, Greg. Thank you, and have a great day.
That is Scott Stebner, Director of Communications with the Kansas Beef Council. He joins us on the Ag Issues program on 580 WIBW. Stay with us. When we come back, we'll get an update on the news headlines, and we'll check the weather forecast. That comes up next.